Hello. So today it's gonna be a little different than what I usually do, and I'll just be going through the sketches and the still life studies I have done for my university preparations. Okay, so instead of like doing a part 3 similar to before where I just shared my artworks with you guys, I figured I'll show you guys all the progress properly and show you guys what I have actually done. So I think that would be interesting and something that you guys might be interested in. Okay, so I'll set that aside. I'll get to it later. This was my first attempt at still lifes. I do have some notes over here. I don't know if you can read it or not, but this was my first attempt at still life. One of the major problems that I had with this was that I completely messed up the proportions, right? Basically, I started initially using this as a measurement, and the problem arose when I switched from this to this as a measurement and completely couldn't really estimate it properly, if that makes sense. So this was my first ever attempt at trying the pencil measuring method for still life. This was my second attempt. Overall, this was a lot better, but I did mess up some of the ellipses here because, as you can see, this ellipse doesn't match with this, and this will match with this, and this doesn't match with this. It goes on. So the main problem with this was a lot about ellipses and a lot about it being a little disproportionate around this area, as it didn't really make sense a little because this is too small, this is too big. This was my second attempt at observational. So one of the major things that happened here was that I tried combining the constructional methods I've learned from drawabox and tried somewhat freehanding them and mixing the observational stuff along with it. So overall this turned out pretty good, but there were definitely some mistakes. I messed up the perspective here and messed up the buttons, as you guys can see, but overall I was pretty happy with this at the time. I definitely knew that one of the problems that happened was that it's too small compared to the page, and according to a test, what we have to do is that we have to cover around 70% of the page, and it's too small in that regard. So this is my attempt number 4. This was probably one of my best attempts at the time. What I did here was pretty much the same as before. I started the whole thing using basic construction and then built upon it, but I didn't really have any orthographs with me, so it was a lot of estimating. The proportions are all estimated, but overall I was pretty happy with this because it looks pretty damn good, doesn't it? The shadows, although, are pretty harsh. Yeah, which I was critiqued pretty badly for because I fucked up, but yeah. This is my 5th attempt. Around this time, I joined a studio for help with observational drawing, because basically one of the main problems that I'm facing right now is that I can't find the past papers properly. In the sense, like most universities, as you guys know, often have their past papers available online for people to see and learn from, right? So I couldn't really do that over here, which became a problem of sorts because I couldn't find any reference material or as to what syllabus the test will be from. So I was like, okay, I need to pay a studio and get some help regarding that. This was my first composition that I made, and this was my attempt at that. Overall, I was pretty happy with this at the time. I definitely did mess up this line around here, and I did mess up the top portion of the tumbler a bit here. Also, this was kind of wrong. There are many mistakes, just unfortunately, still life is one of those things that only get better with practice. So It just unfortunate, it's sad, but you just have to stick to it. This was my sixth attempt. This was really nice. I was pretty happy with this at the time. You guys might have to turn your phone. I can't really turn the whole picture because it will like mess up the whole camera setup, but I was pretty happy with this. One of the major problems that I had was that the stop bit wasn't aligned properly to this metal sphere, to this metal hemisphere, and similarly, like, this was too big. It had a lot of proportional issues. Similarly, I was told to attempt this again, so I attempted it again, and again I had the same issues. Like, I did manage to align this a lot better, but again problem arose when this wasn't properly drawn, and this was a bit too big, right? I believe, at least from what I understood at the time, what I figured was that the main problem arose in my measurements. I made it way too long, or what I could have done was just made it a bit shorter, or I could have made this portion a bit larger. That's what I got from looking at it for hours, but otherwise I'm still a bit. I believe the main problem still laid with the initial measurements I made. So it was with still life so far. My experience has been that it's been a continuous battle with proportions. It was total pain in the ass. But truth be told, this could have been a lot worse if I didn't do drawabox. I'm very happy that I did do drawabox and that I did attempted drawabox because I learned a ton from that. So around here, I was told that my proportions are ass. I need to fucking improve that. So I was told to skip shading and just focus on proportions as it. So this was done from an image. I was told not to do it from real life, and was told to just do it from images for now until I get a slight feel for it all. I was happy with this. There were some problems with the ellipses, but overall I was pretty happy with this perspective. Again, this was also done with the same with images, but one of the problems that arose was that these lines, according to the image, were a bit slanted, and unfortunately I didn't make them as slanted because I was using the same method they taught us, like to the dot, right? So unfortunately it became pretty skewed around this area, but overall I was happy with this. There was some this was weirdly complicated to draw, so overall I was happy with this. So this was my 10th attempt. There's nothing impressive about this. It's just a damn cup, and also this was like way too small. Like it should be vertical or something. Yes, too small. And this was my 11th attempt. I was really happy with this, by the way. Really happy with this. I believe the main problem again arose around this area. It's a bit slanted, but overall I was pretty happy because it looks 3D. It looks like a proper gun, right? I was pretty happy with this one. And this was my 12th attempt. I messed up this area. Otherwise, there's nothing really of note. It's just pretty boring. This is a modal pastel. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, around the modal pastel, I just switched to drawing from real life. I wasn't using images from these. So from here on, it's like still life from observation, by the way. This is the bottom of my blender. I was having a lot of troubles trying to guess this curvature. Similarly, the stop bit a lot. So I attempted again, but unfortunately, I erased it. So this is, by the way, this is like I've attempted this thing around 4 times and only got it after with this, and there were still many problems. This was my 14th attempt. I was pretty happy with this. Overall shading was nice, overall it was nicely done. One of the things that I did notice was that this bit was a little too small in proportion to the handle. It was quite small in reality, but still it needed to be a bit more bigger. Similarly, the shadows are a bit too harsh. That's the main critique I found. This is the jug of my blender. I tried doing this, but I kept messing up. I tried multiple times. This is, I believe, yeah, this is my second attempt at this, and I completely messed it up again. This was essentially, basically, in an aptitude test, we have an imaginative section where they ask us to draw something inspired by a word. This wasn't done properly, by the way, but yeah, these are the marks I got. I failed it. So yeah, this was an execution site. The word was death, and unfortunately I wasn't supposed to make death. Yeah, I was supposed to make like some boring ass fucking vague ass topic but thing, but yeah. I was really happy with this, by the way. This is my 16th attempt at observation. I was really happy with this. Overall, this did turn out a bit small, I know, but this was really nicely done. Overall, the shadows were nice. I admit they could have been a lot more smoother, but overall, I was pretty happy with this. It looks real, it looks nice, the shadows make sense, and it looks like an object. This was my 17th attempt. Overall, I was pretty happy with this. One of the main critiques I got was that my initial box was a little wrong, which I do agree with. But the main thing that stood out was this area. This area was basically like indented like that. And I couldn't figure out how to properly show that through shading. That, as well as these ellipses, were wrong over here. This was my 18th attempt. I fucking love this attempt. This turned out to be amazing, by the way. I was really happy with how this turned out. I was told, so far I've been told to only do one object. So I wanted to like get creative and did like one main object and did half of an object. This is probably the best attempt I've had so far. This is one of my most recent attempts too. And I was really happy with this actually. One of the main things that I was trying to do here was the bristles. The major thing that I wanted to accomplish here was to ace the bristles. Basically, in a test some time ago, they asked us to draw like straw, like not drink straws, more like the brooms that are made of straws. Does that make sense? Those straws. So they just threw a bunch of straw on the ground and told us to draw that, and I wasn't too sure how to do that. So I was like, okay, I'll attempt this, and apparently it worked. I was really happy with this, by the way. And this is my most latest one. These are just pliers. I didn't mess up around here a little. That's what I feel. But overall, I was pretty happy with this one too. Okay, I'll move on to aptitude stuff. More specific aptitude stuff, like the proper one I've done so far. This, basically, we have an exercise in words where in aptitude called words, where they give us a word and we have to draw something using that word in 30 minutes. The problem is that if they, for example, they ask you to draw death, or for example, they ask you anything, for example, they give you a topic like summer, you can't do anything that's very literal. You have to do something that nobody else can think of, and you have to do something that's really vague yet relevant. So over here, what the word I had was starve. So what I did was think for about 15-18 minutes, and I decided to draw a stomach with a rope wrapped around it. Here what I wanted to express was how it feels during starvation. So in the sense, like, the stomach is trying to represent food while the rope is trying to show the restriction of food. So what I'm trying to show is the feeling you have when you don't get any food for a very long period of time. The emptiness you feel, the starvation you feel. That's the goal of it all. this is another exercise we did called continuation of lines. Basically, in this one, what we did was basically we had these two lines like that and like that. I had these two lines and I had two lines over here. And in around, I believe the total time, if I remember correctly, was 15 or 20 minutes or so. If I remember correctly. I may be wrong on this, but for now, I'll just go with 15 minutes. I don't remember. It was something like that. And the goal here was to just create something out of it. We could have done a full series, in the sense I could have done a full pattern on it. I could have done a proper drawing using it. I could have done anything, as long as those lines vanished within my artwork and became part of that artwork. It was allowed. So what I did, since the lines are pretty flowy in nature, since the lines were like this, right? So I was like, okay, since these lines are really flowy in nature, why not like try drawing abstract shapes that flow with the same force, right? And coincidentally, it turned out to be like flowers, and this page turned out kind of nice actually. I haven't gotten critiqued on this yet, but I think it's nice, but I believe I'll get critique on this tomorrow. I think, I'm not too sure. Yeah. Okay, so yes, this is another one. Same with words. The word was strength this time. This was really weird, because as always, the first thought that comes into your mind when you think of strength is a strong person, or for example, you know those images you find on Pinterest with this like a dad holding their children's hand, and that's perfectly okay, but unfortunately we can't draw that. We have to draw something that's vague as fuck. So what I did was draw a sake cup, which in Japanese culture is often used to form friendships and bonds. It is also often used in, like, okay, I have no idea on this. I saw it in an anime. I'll be fucking honest with you guys. But people, and a long time ago, people shared a cup of sake to become brothers of sorts. So that was our inspiration behind it. I also added that Japanese fixing technique where they use gold flakes and glue to fix broken pots. I also added that as a to show strength. This was again aptitude. The goal was to draw something inspired by an emoji. In 10 minutes, I chose a drum emoji, and that drew a guy playing drums, which was instantly rejected because I can't draw a guy playing drums, unfortunately. I have to draw something that's completely different from drums, but inspired by it. So I believe I could have drawn anything like a drum solo of sorts, or I could have drawn the sound a drum makes, something like that. Yeah. Similarly, this is another one we did. The goal was to draw something, was just to make a quick sketch in like 10 minutes. So we didn't really have much time to think. The goal was just to draw something using two words, and the words we were given were time and butterfly. And now the words are vague as hell and don't relate to each other at all. But since we had to make something, I was pretty new at this. This is likely has some problems, but what I decided on was to take the word fly, since butterflies can fly, was just to create a spaceship from the word fly and make it seem that like it's traveling through time, and use both of those words together like that. Yeah, that's it for the review. I finally finished my whole sketchbook, the whole sketch pad I bought, so I figured I'll make a proper review of my progress so far. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys found it inspirational. Thank you. Bye bye.